Hello friends and welcome to my channel. Today's topic is perfume books. One thing I've noticed is that perfume lovers tend to be book lovers, and as I'm one, as you can see, and I'm always happy to talk about books on perfume or any other topic whatsoever. So, for those who are new to my channel, my name is Victoria and I'm a professionally trained perfumer and a writer, and here on this channel I talk about fragrance and whatever I've learned working in perfume industry. And so when we're talking about perfume books, I have a few favorites, a few books that I always keep on hand and I'm always tempted to reread. The number one is this volume. I've read it so much, I actually need to get another edition because mine is a little bit falling apart. And it's Luca Turin and Tanya Sanchez Perfumes, the A to Z guide. So it's, I have to say from the outset, many of the books I mentioned are written by my friends. And so whether I'm partial, impartial, that's for you to decide. You are welcome to take my recommendations with a grain of salt. But I do think that this book is the best when it comes to guide on perfume and descriptions. Whether you follow the descriptions, whether you buy fragrances based on these descriptions, but simply the pleasure of reading this book, you can open it at any page and find a gem, such as I opened it randomly, and here we are, Gucci by Gucci pour Homme, and that's Luca's description. I can see where the inspiration for a thing like this would come from: a train platform at a railway station in a major city, afternoon rush hour, the day the clocks are set back, and it's dark when you get home. An hour's travel, no place to sit, too crowded, and the guy next to you has recently refreshed his aftershave. I love this book. If you would like something more technical about perfumery, about molecules used in perfumery, how they're created, and what gives them an odor that they have, then there's a Luca Turin, The Secret of Scent, and although the topic is quite technical, but it's so well written and so well explained that I think even if you don't know all that much about organic chemistry, you can find something fascinating in this book. Much recommended. And then another book that I like, it's a recent publication. It's Nosedive by Harold McGee. And it's really exploration of olfaction and in its different manifestations. And if you know Harold McGee's work on food and cooking, then you know that it's going to be a well-researched, a well-explained, and really well-written work. And there are different topics such as flowers, the kind of flowers that are used in perfumery, or plant volatile families, fruits, the sense of cooked food, and what gives different, for instance, fermented foods or cured foods, their odor. It's much recommended. You can read this book from cover to cover, or you can read different sections depending on your interest. So to me, it's a reference as well as a really enjoyable read. Then there are two books that are about personal exploration of perfume, and I have them on my Kindle, so I don't have the paper copy. One is Alisa Harat, Coming to My Senses, and I mention it not only because I was a character in that book, but because it's really well-written book with a story of someone who discovers perfumery and perfume world, perfume collecting, and just falls into the rabbit hole and has her life completely changed by perfume and by becoming more aware of scents. So I think it's really quite, it's just such a beautiful and inspiring story. Another book is Perfume Lover by Denise Beaulieu. And Denise has a blog called Grande Musc, and she describes in that book how she wanted to recreate a fragrance that reminded her of one day of falling in love in Seville. And so there was a fragrance that was launched alongside with the book called L'Artisan Sevilla à l'Aube, and it's an orange blossom perfume. And so wearing perfume and reading the book makes for an enjoyable experience. Then I have a couple of books. One that I talked about on this channel before, it's Karl Schlögel, The Scent of Empire, and it's the story of Chanel No. 5 and of Krasnaya Moskva, Red Moscow, like the perfume of the Soviet Union, and it compares them and describes how they represented their eras. I think it's an interesting book as a historical perspective, explaining how fragrance finds its how it scents. The scents are And then there is a book that I already mentioned on this channel. It's Karl Schlögel, The Scent of Empire, and it's the story of Chanel No. 5 on the one hand, and Krasnaya Moskva, Red Moscow, the perfume that was the defining perfume of the Soviet Union. And so it's a historical perspective on perfume, describing how fragrances can reflect their era and how they're inspired by that era. And I think that topic is interesting because perfume today is presented as marketed completely disengaged from kind of general culture, general society, and trends. But they still reflect them. And this book gives like a really interesting zoomed in version of the two particular scents and two places that represented them. Then there is a book that I really like as a professional, although I'm not sure if you can find it all that easily because now it's out of print. I hope, however, that it will return because Scent and Chemistry by Olof, Pickenhagen and Kraft. Philip Kraft is a fragrance chemist, really famous fragrance chemist. Once he worked at Givaudan. And he is it. And then there is a book. And then there is a book that I really appreciate as a professional, and it's called Scent and Chemistry, the Molecular World of Odors, and it has 3 authors. They're all fragrance chemists, Philip Kraft, Günther Olof, and Wilhelm Pickenhagen. And the interesting part about this book is that, for instance, it does have these very charts on different molecules, and it's for professionals, that's very useful, but also explanations how these ingredients are used in fragrances, at what proportions, and what role they play, and it's organized by odor groups, so it's quite fascinating. If you're interested in that kind of technical information, I really think it's the best book that's available right now on the market. Unfortunately, it's out of print and might be difficult to get, but I hope it will return, and if it does, definitely look into it. If you're someone who wants to know what's the percentage of Isui Super in Dior Eau Sauvage or Hermès Bavre Samarkand, then that book is for you. And there's another classical book. I took it, but also I think it's out of print and might be a little bit complicated to get. It's The Perfumery by Kalkin and Jelinek. And also it explains different aspects of perfumery, some about profession, but also about formulas and materials. And it's one of the staple books. People often ask me what perfume textbooks I can recommend. But in perfume schools, we don't really use textbooks because it's such a hands-on experience, and really the 2 years of perfumery school is just about learning to smell and smelling as much as possible, and learning intensively. That way there's no reading involved, really. There is a new book that just been launched. It's a bilingual book. It's by Simpar and Ne and Outfit in Paris, the perfume magazine. And this one is called De la plante à l'essence, and From Plant to Essence. And as I said, it's bilingual. It's in French and in English. So this book I really liked. I think it's a great book as an introduction for perfumery, because it talks about different odor groups, different materials used in perfumery. It gives specific examples of fragrances, including niche fragrances and popular or classical fragrances. There are interviews with perfumers. There are focus on farmers, and there's just a lot of information. It's in the 200 or so pages. It really packs quite a bit. So very much recommended. I think it's just nicely done. Then, of course, there is a whole collection of books in French on perfumery. I will leave a couple of titles if you are interested, or if you're interested in more reviews of those books, just let me know. But today I just wanted to focus on the English language books. And I wanted to mention also another book, and it's almost like a classic in this category. It's Chandler Burr's The Emperor of Scent, and it's about Luc Atteron and his experience of trying to prove his theory of molecule shape and odor correlation. And it's also about perfume industry and fragrances, and just this passion that fragrances can inspire. It's really well written, and it's already say classical, but it can be read and still enjoyed, and much of the information is still relevant. Perfume industry does not change that much. So those are some of my favorites. I would love to hear what books on perfume you enjoy, and as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.